My name is Muhammad Abdullah on behalf of IslamiCity. I welcome all of you again to this daily Quran reflections with Dr. Aslam Abdullah. Dr. Aslam, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is the 23rd night, and it is one of those nights that is called the night of power. It is one of those nights where we can take the destiny in our own hands on the basis of the divine guidance and remind ourselves and reassure ourselves that we are capable of changing ourselves and bringing about those desired ideals in our life that would help us succeed in this life and the life hereafter. And how do we do that? Through reflections. How do we do it? Through our meditation, through our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we recite the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the solitude or in the group, if we have them around us, we are in fact reflecting, we are in fact reminding ourselves of our responsibilities towards ourselves and towards our humanity. And this is something that we have to remember, that let us make use of these nights, because who had known previous year that we would face this kind of situation this year, and who knows what would happen to us next year. So please make use of these things. Think that every minute and every moment of these nights is sacred, and you are sacred, and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are sacred. Make use of this sacred bond with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and reflect, even if it is one verse of the Quran. It doesn't matter that you recite the entire Quran, or you recite one juz, or you recite one page, even if it is one ayah that helps you build a better insight into the divine scheme and divine thinking, you are better off. And that is the purpose of this. It would change your destiny. It would change when we start taking control of our own destiny, things start changing. When we leave it to others, we become like a fallen leaf, which is at the mercy of the wind, can be taken anywhere. But if we are grounded in reality, and if we believe in what we believe in, and nothing can happen. And this is one of the important message that emerges from this particular just that we would be reflecting, that in reference to Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that he was internally strong. He faced all the challenges because of his internal strength. And where does the internal strength come? Not our physical being, it comes from our psychological and our mental attitude. When we know that there is a higher power supporting us and defending us and protecting us, we become fearless. And the moment we become fearless, we can do wonders with ourselves and with others. So let us focus on this particular juz that has 357 ayahs, perhaps the largest number of ayahs, one of the largest number of ayahs in the Quran. And it comprises of chapters from Surah Yasin, Surah Safat, Surah Sa'ad, and Surah Zumar. We will come to Surah Yasin as we described part of it yesterday. Surah Safat speaks of the unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in very strong terms. It tells about the teachings of various prophets. All of them preached the same message. It gives warnings to the non believers that their plot against the message will not succeed and will not work. And the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will prevail. Surah Sa'ad talks about the basic message of all the prophets and the messengers of Allah. They came to preach Tawheed. The prophet, all the prophets suffered and went through a lot of hardships in presenting Allah's message, as they faced animosity and they faced rejection from their people. Their enemies attacked them and persecuted them, but they finally prevailed because they were on the side of the truth, and the falsehood was defeated. Power and riches all come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those people who understand that are indeed the ones who are devoted to it. Some people become arrogant because of what they have, and they try to exert their power in wrongful manners. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the examples of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam and Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, saying that they were prophets and they were all had great riches and great wealth and great resources, but they were humble and they followed the divine guidance. Surah Zumr talks about the true religion, and which is serving God Almighty with sincerity and to avoid shirk. It says that the monotheism, the belief in one God, clarifies one's own understanding of one's purpose in this life. And while the duality or polytheism leads people to conflicts and to terrible consequences, believers are told not to despair and not to lose heart. It is difficult for them to practice their religion in one place, then they can migrate to other place. The believers are also told that they can do whatever they wish, but they cannot turn. I mean, the non-believers are told that they can do whatever they can, but they cannot turn the believers away from the path of God. So this, in general, is the summary of those three surahs. If we go at the sections or what we call the ruku, there are some, I think, 15 ruku or 15 sections in this part, and they are like this. That in sequence, the first one talks about the scenes of the day of resurrection. The second about the reminds about the death and the day of judgment. The third about the Lord of heavens and earth, and the markers at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will one day see the truth. And the day of judgment is definitely a reality. The guilty shall be punished, and virtuous shall be rewarded. Allah delivered Prophet Noah from his enemies, Prophet Ibrahim's encounter with the idolaters, then the test of Prophet Ibrahim والسلام, and his willingness to sacrifice his son, which he saw in the dream, that is Ismail والسلام. And I'll briefly touch upon this aspect also, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivered Prophet Musa, Prophet Harun, Prophet Elias, and Prophet Lut, and punished their enemies and rejectors. And then the Prophet Yunus alayhi salatu wasalam, how he was delivered from the belly of the whale, and the angels and are not Allah's daughters; they are Allah's true servants, or the abd, Allah's messengers will ultimately succeed. It is a warning. Then it gives the warning to the believers, the arguments of the disbelievers against the Quran and the Prophet, and the defeat of the disbelievers. It also reminds people to remember Allah's servant, uh, Prophet Dawood والسلام, and who was also tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, despite the fact that he had power and he had riches and all those things. Allah's blessings upon the Prophet Sulaiman والسلام. He was also tested, and then he kept on himself on the path of humility, and kept on repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah also tested Prophet Ayub, and rewarded him with patience, and he also uh, tested Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Ishaq, Prophet Yaqub, Prophet Ismail, Prophet Elisha, and Zulkifl. And again, the messages that God is one, and the great message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate message. He is the one who created Adam. He is the one who, uh, asked Malaika to submit to Adam, but Iblis, again, based on his arrogance and belief that he's better than Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, rejected this creation and projected himself as independent, yet dependent upon the divine laws. To Allah brings the pure and sincere religion, and the principle of Tawheed and its benefit. The evil of shirk and its consequences are also explained. And then the reward of those who are steadfast in their faith. And then the perfect guidance is in the Quran. It is straight, without any crookedness. So this in general is the issue. I mentioned that the issue of the sacrifice of Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam is mentioned, even though it is not mentioned by name that it was Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, but the context and the reference relates to Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam because it says that the first son of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And that is also what the Bible also says. And according to the Quran and according even to the Bible, Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam is the first son, biological son of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, even though the mother is different. So that is one thing. And here the contrast is that the biblical sources do not recognize Hajra alayhi salatu wasalam as legitimate wife of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, while the Quran does. The biblical sources define Hajra alayhi salatu wasalam as a concubine. The Quran describes her as a wife. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is a major difference in the understanding of Hajra alayhi salatu wasalam. And it is in this particular context that there is a dispute in the understanding between the Jewish followers of Judaism and the Muslims followers of Islam that the Quran says that it was Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, and the Jews say it was Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam who was being offered at Mount Menorah in what we call Jerusalem. And we do not find any relevance, any reference, historical reference, that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam ever visited at that particular time, this particular area where this incident took place. In fact, if we look at the chronology, it is found that the event is taking place at a time when Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam is not even born. There is a difference between the age of 2 and it is said that at the age of 8, when Ismail Islam was 8 years old, then this particular incident took place in Mecca. So this is a historical thing, and probably the history one day will reveal the truth, as it always reveals about many other things, as we see in the case of Fir'aun, that the Quran said that today we are saving his body, and then until for almost 1400 years, people were marveling where that body is and was Quran referring to the armor or to the actual body. But in 1894, the body was discovered and the issue historically was settled. So we hope that one day this also will be settled and the truth will come out. Now let us come to some of the very powerful verses of the Quran in this one. And let's go to the one that we chosen. That does not mean that these are the only verses, but it seems that they are communicating a message, a very powerful message that is very relevant to all our time and all our situations, and we need to learn from them. The ayah 36, 38, it is Surah Yasin, and until 40. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه ومنازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. In these verses, Quran and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abolished the false dichotomy that human beings have created between faith and science. Prior to this one, even in Christianity, even in Judaism, there was a dominant belief among the people of monotheistic religions as well as others that faith is different than science. That science is, in fact, only a figment of imagination of the people who claim that they understand things better than others. And people had different understanding about the earth, about the moon, about the sun, about everything. In different cultures, in different traditions, the moon and sun were projected in a manner which it appeared to be much more related with the traditions and with superstitions then with reality, and then with facts. The Quran, through these examples, demolishes that false dichotomy that exists and makes it imperative upon the believers to look at the facts as they are, not as facts presented through superstitions. So, what does it say? It says that there is a sign in the sun, means there is a reality, there is a fact. And what is that fact? That it runs in an orbit of its own, and that it is laid down by the law of the Almighty. The translation usually is done was Ali Taqdirul Aziz al Alim, that it is the will of the Almighty. It is the law of the Almighty. Because will can be changed. Law is unchangeable when it is finalized in the divine scheme. Will can be changed. And qadr means what you call a criterion. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's criterion are unchangeable in these laws. So this is what it says, the law of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. And about the moon, it says, and the moon for which we have determined phases, which it must traverse till it becomes like an old date stalk, dried up and curved. That the moon also has phases. And those phases are determined. So when the moon will be born, when will it be seen, when it will turn to half, when it will turn into quarter, when it will be complete moon. This is all that has been determined, and it has been in phases. So why should we fight on this moon sighting? Why? At that particular time, at the time of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the means, the technology was not that advanced to determine all those things, but the realization was there. And in order for that particular realization, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made a very common sense appeal to the people that, well, if you find the moon on the new moon on the 29th, make it. If you can't see it because of whatever, you can, have a 30-day phase, because there could be various options, and you should not be in any state of doubt. So the, now we have means to understand and to determine things not only for this year but for the next million years. So why do we fight? And this is what the Quran is saying. Any discussion, any debate on those issues is meaningless, and it basically defies the Quranic knowledge and Quranic teaching. This is what I feel. La shamsu yanbaghi laha an tudrika al-qamar. Neither may the sun overtake the moon, nor can the night usurp the time of day, since all of them float through space in accordance with the laws. So everything is determined on the basis of laws. Then by projecting our own understanding, we are saying that we don't trust these laws. This is exactly what we are saying. No matter how much religiosity and how much piety we show, this is not what the intent of the Prophet was. This is what's not the intent. The intent of the Prophet was to make sure that you are not in doubt about any of those things. And when our own science, and science is faith, faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, faith in the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, we might make mistake in understanding, but until that mistake is brought out, we could at least be sure in what we agree. So this is something that we need to understand. It is not only about the moon sighting in the month of Ramadan or the month of Zilhajj. It is also in relation to the moon sighting and the recognizing the facts that all the ecclesiastical forces run on the basis of laws, not on the basis of superstition. And where does it invite us to? To research, to explore. There was a time when Muslims were astronomers. There was a time they were studying the moon and the sun, and all those kind of debates that Muslims are having today on the issue whether we should pray according to the 15-degree latitude of sun or the 18-degree latitude of sun. They were, the studies done by the scientists like Al-Biruni in the 12th and 11th century or 13th century. So all these things have to be understood by us within that particular context. And once we make the Quran a basic, you brought out this on the page, the astronomy, heritage of Arabian astronomy. It is in fact the Muslim astronomy because it was Islam and the Quran that forced people to think in those particular directions, because the Arabs also believed in those things. Even though the many researchers were Arabs. In fact, it is also wrong to say that many researchers were Arabs. They were from Central Asia. Many of them were from Central Asia, from the Caucasus areas, from Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Chechnya, and what is now part of Iran also, and all those things. So we have to realize all those things. Let us go to the next verse, which is verse, I think, 36:47. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. That was when they are told, means the people in general, not necessarily the non-believers, also everyone could be included in that. Spend on others out of what Allah has provided you as sustenance. Those who are bent on denying this particular law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say unto those who believe, shall we feed anyone whom, if God had so willed, he could have fed himself? Clearly, you are but lost in error. And this is one of the issues that we find among Muslims also. Many people, who have become ex-Muslims, so-called ex-Muslims, they have used this particular argument. Why there is so much hunger? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of feeding. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can feed anyone. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, says that you human beings have been given the trust of running the affairs of this world. All the resources have been made subdued to you. If you do not act in a just manner in ensuring that the people do not live in hunger, have a roof on their head, have proper clothes to wear on, have access to water, have access to hygienic living, have access to all those things that are necessary for survival, then you are the one who have caused this mess. You are the one who have to clear that mess, because that is what has been assigned to you. And if you would not, then you would be held accountable. Allah can do anything that they want, but if it has given you that responsibility and you do not fulfill that responsibility, you are the one who is causing this trouble and this kind of problems and this kind of misery to the people, and you are the one. And this is the point that is being mentioned. This is more than a philosophical issue. This is more than an ideological issue. It is the issue of the survival of humanity, that you, through your own actions, are destroying this humanity and then claiming God for that, saying that it is God who could have fed them. It is God who could have saved Jews. It is God who could have saved Muslims. No, you had to stand up. You had to take positions on those issues. You have to create movements. You have to create struggles to ensure that Islam is not all about, and the faith is not all about going to the mosque and then praying behind Imam 5 times a day. Faith is when you come out in the streets with the strength of what you believe in and what you pray in the mosque, and stand for justice and for truth and for equality and for dignity of humanity. And if we don't do this kind of thing, then this is the outcome. How come Allah subhanahu wa Allah will take care of those people? Allah has already taken care of. He has given all these resources. He has made your mind so brilliant that you can explore things and you can find things. And yet you're not grateful to Him by being concerned about all those people who are hungry, who are poor, and all those things. So essentially, Islam is reminding people of their responsibilities towards human beings. And Islam had expected, and God had expected Muslims to be that community that, for the sake of God, would stand up for justice, for truth, for all those things. But then Muslims themselves have become one of the rejectors of the divine guidance and divine message, even though they pray, even though they recite the Quran, even though they fast, even though they do all those kind of things. But there is one thing that I noticed this Ramadan, and this is a very careful observation because I've been studying the Muslim, attitude in this particular Ramadan throughout the world. That the majority of the people, the Muslim people at the grassroots level, have opened their resources like they had never opened before to support the poor and the needy in every country, in every place. In the Gulf area, in the Muslim dominant areas, any non-Muslim who suffers from this COVID, any non-Muslims who suffers from all these things, despite the fact they have been Islamophobes, and the Muslims have been the first one to help them. Even in place like India, where the life of Muslims has become difficult and the Muslims are being lynched and Muslims are being killed left and right by the fascists, when the issue of migrant laborers came up, when millions of them started walking, Muslims were standing on the roadsides, offering them food, water, and all the necessities of life. So this is a amazing thing that I have witnessed, and this is something that we should all celebrate. That perhaps this might be a turning point for Muslim Ummah all over the world. That it would go back to its roots, and it is going back to its roots to understand what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala uh, has asked it to do. And the next verse 37, 39, explain uh, what we are doing and what this community is doing in a beautiful manner. وَمَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. And you shall not be requited for naught but what you were wont to do. Whatever you were doing, you will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't think that He's unjust. Don't think that He would not take care of you. Don't think He would not protect you. Don't think that He would abandon you. He would always be on your side because you were on His side. Because you were the ones who came as angels to those people who were looking for help, who were looking for support, who were confused about everything. And this is something that we must also remember. وَمَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. We will reap what we will sow. And if we are sowing good, the crop will be good, inshallah. And that is what the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never breaks His promise. The next verse is 38:26. يا داود إنا جعلناك خليفة في الأرض فاحكم بين الناس بالحق ولا تتبع الهوى ويضلك عن سبيل الله إن الذين يضلون عن سبيل الله لهم عذاب شديد بما نصوا يوم الحساب. I will focus on the first sentence. يا داود إنا جعلناك خليفة في الأرض. Most of the translations say that we have made you vicegerent, a deputy of Allah. Stop for a minute here and think and ask, what does the word Khalifa mean? Khalifa means successor. Khalaf, the one who comes after the one, successor. Can anyone in his right mind think that human being can succeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Think about it. Can a mortal being, the one who is committing sins, the one who is weak, the one who has been rebellious to God, be a successor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So Khalifa is not vicegerent. That's why when Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala became the Khalifa and people addressed him as Khalifatullah, what was the response of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala? La ana la Khalifatullah, ana Khalifatul Rasul. I came after the Prophet and hence I'm a Khalifa of the Rasul. I succeeded Rasul. Not as a prophet, but as a ruler, as someone who would run the affairs of the community. So please remember that difference. And this is the position that Imam Taymiyyah has also taken. This is not the position that I have taken. And this is the position of many others. The Khalifa does not mean vice. This concept is more close to the Jewish thinking, where they think that human beings are partners in the creation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are not partners. We are the ones who discover the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We never can create anything from nothing. Nothing. This is the basic issue of humility. So we have to understand, Ya Dawood, inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. We have given you the rulership after the rulership of the previous ones. Fahkum bayna nas bil haqq. So your responsibility is to ensure that you would have justice in your dealings with you, and you would not base your decisions on the basis of your own personal whims and personal understandings of things. Rather, you would follow the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you would not deviate from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you would keep on following, because those who do not follow the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed are the one who put the people in torment and who put their life miserable, and who make the life of others also miserable. So this is another issue that one has to understand, that we are not Khalifa, we are the Abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is in this particular context that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he was addressing the Malaika about the creation of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, inna ja'alna fil ardi khalifa, that we have decided to make a vice, not a vicegerent, but an abd who would follow those who were before him on this earth. So please remember that, because we do not want to exceed our own limits, and this is where uh, all the problem comes. Because based on this understanding, many of our rulers start telling ourselves as the Muslims as well, that they are zillillah, they are the shade of God on earth. No one has laysa kamithlihi shay'an. No one is like unto him. How can we say that one is a shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We all have the energy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of us, rulers, common people, lay people, everyone. So please be careful when you use the word Khalifa, and study that. If you agree, that's fine. If you don't, then certainly you might have your own, dalil, your own arguments for that. But this is what my understanding is. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم.
Thank you, Dr. Aslam. So I have a few verses that I wanted to cover. The first one is 39:30. It says, "You, prophet, will certainly die, and so will they. And on the day of resurrection, you will dispute with one another in the presence of your Lord."
What is being said that each one of us will leave this world one day or the other. Not only the Prophet, but all human beings, the same way as the people in the past have left. And all that we have been arguing in this life, all that we have been discussing and debating and having conflicts on, would be resolved on that day because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pass on his judgment. It is not that on that day we will argue that this is what we believe and this is what they believed in. It is not that kind of thing that on one gallery someone else will be standing up and we will be standing on the other. It is that all of us will be at one place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pronounce the judgment. And we, through that judgment, would understand where we were in this world in terms of our understanding of the reality and in terms of our understanding of the divine guidance.
Okay. The next verse is, sorry. Actually, I started in the wrong order, but this is 39:5. This is a verse which is similar to the one that you already covered. He created the heavens and the earth for a true purpose. He wraps the night around the day and the day around the night. He has subjected the sun and the moon to run their courses for an appointed time. He is truly the mighty, the forgiving. Um, I was reflecting on this. Uh, 2/3 of the stars have Arabic names. The early Muslim scholars who were multidimensional in their fields, who had memorized the Quran, and they were historians, people who had memorized the Quran. They were botanists. They had memorized the Quran, and they were astronomers. And of course, we have uh, a number of famous astronomers who were intrigued by these verses of the Quran, and we can see that the Quran is replete with these verses. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. And if anyone is interested, we have an entire section on IslamiCity on astronomy under nature and science. And I would really encourage anyone interested in astronomy to please look at this, look at the verses in the Quran, and see how else can we make a better understanding of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and try and understand the universe around us. So that was not a question, that was just a comment I want to
Thank you.
share with you.
Thank you. That's very useful.
So and then this other verse is 39:23. God has sent down the most beautiful of all teachings, a scripture that is consistent and draws comparisons, that causes the skins of those in awe of their Lord to shiver. Then their skins and their hearts soften at the mention of God. Such is God's guidance. He guides with it whoever He wills. No one can guide those God leaves to astray.
Something very interesting, and because while reading the Quran several times, this particular verse struck me as a very uh, illuminating verse and very powerful verse. In addition to what is being said that those people who, when they read these scriptures and when they read the Quranic reflections and Quranic guidance and divine guidance, their skin, or apparently they become overwhelmed by that, and they start believing in what is being said in all those things. But in addition to that, it is also giving the believers and those people who are in the work of introducing Islam to others a methodology. How should we introduce Islam to others? On the basis of facts, on the basis of universal laws and universal facts. Not on the basis of our own assumptions, not on the basis of our own uh, traditions, but on the basis of facts. Because facts cannot be denied by others. Truth cannot be denied by others. They might reject it. There's a difference between denial and rejection. They may reject it. And if they reject something knowingly, then they are in that category of those people who are disbelievers. Until the truth has been presented to them in the manner in which Allah wants us to present, that is based on facts. And what are those facts? Ahsan al-kitab mutashabihan, the book, the law of Allah. We read about the sun and moon. We read about the night and days. We read about the creation. We read about the stars. Everything. Are these not the facts? So that means, in order to present those facts, we have to understand those facts first. And let us ask a simple question: that how many of us, those who are in this work of introducing Islam, really know about all those things? How many of us astronomers? How many of us are have studied this kind of physical laws? How many of us have studied the laws of the nature and all those things? And this is a question that one has to ask oneself. And it is in this particular context we have to see that everything uh, is determined on the basis of truth and the basis of laws. Those who do not base things on truth and based on facts, in fact, suffer, and they cause sufferings to others as well.
Right. And I think one of the things that you've been emphasizing over and over again, it reminds me of what Dr. Mahir Hathout, may Allah accept him among the best of Jannah, inshallah. I used to say that we are here to create leaders. We are here to create scholars, not followers.
Indeed.
And this is about really trying to understand on our own. And until we create a critical mass of people who have the knowledge, that is how we will increase our scholarship also. So,
In fact, one of the hadiths of the Prophet says that everyone of you is a leader, everyone of you is a follower. Why? Why? Because if you find the truth given by you, we accept it. If you find the truth given by others, you accept it. So each one of us must make that efforts to understand the truth. And who knows whose understanding or whose discovery, you know, might be the most useful thing for the rest of us.
absolutely. And of course, when you read early Islamic history, we see that the Khalifas are
Indeed.
Abu Bakr and Hazrat Umar and so on. They were challenged by the companions because all of the companions had knowledge also, and they were leaders and followers, as you were saying.
There is one thing that we should also imagine and think. Look at the discourse that have been going on in the Quran, and look at the discussion that is attributed to the Prophet and the Sahabas in terms of the traditions. You would find a dichotomy. Here, the Quran is talking about nature. Here, the Quran is talking about the sun, the moon, the laws of universe, and all those things. And there, the discussion is on the minutest detail about the purity of water. I'm not saying that that is an irrelevant discussion. What I'm saying that somehow we don't have the full picture of the society in which the Quran was being understood and was being debated and discussed and was being lived. Because the history of Muslims was compiled some 300 years after the departure of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and much is based on the human memory, and human memory is not, uh, guaranteed institution to remember each and everything that took place in those 300 years. So it's quite possible that the foundation of Islamic astronomy, Islamic science, Islamic optometry, Islamic surgery were developed at the time of the Prophet, and we don't have much information about that. We don't know. But history one day will reveal all those things, and we should, until that time, believe in what the Quran is saying.
Absolutely. So before we end, I just wanted to make a request for call to action over here. And actually, before I do that, let me just quickly show you the call to action that I want to make is in these last few days, we do have a donation campaign that is going on for Ramadan. Of course, like many organizations, we raise the majority of our funds during this month. If you are here during Jummah, I made the same plea. We have a goal of $500,000 that we want to raise. And this is our goal, which is an aggressive goal based on the needs under the current circumstances. I hope you will participate in that. And the call to action for that, I wanted to just make sure that I can share this with you. Three things we want you to do. One is please consider giving your zakat to IslamiCity. According to various scholars, building institutions here in the West is zakat eligible. And of course, here we are a tax deductible organization also. So that is the first thing. The second thing is please become a monthly donor on top of your zakat that you give. A monthly donor, $5, $10, $20, whatever you can afford. But on a monthly basis, that really helps us sustain and plan for the work that we are doing. And number three, please ask just two of your members from your family or your friends to do the same. Give zakat and become a monthly donor. So just
Can I?
these are, yes, please.
I just wanted to add two things. Based on the internet statistics, one can safely say that the number of visitors to IslamiCity exceed the total number of visitors to all the websites that are run by major Islamic groups in this country. So the outreach of IslamiCity is far greater and far bigger with little amount that they have at their disposal. So imagine the wonders can be done by increasing the support to IslamiCity. And it would not hurt us if we monthly devote $10, $20, $50 towards this particular institution because it would build the future for Muslims. That is the first thing that I wanted to suggest. The second thing I wanted to suggest that let's make 27th of Ramadan night, that is the Laylatul Qadr night, a night to be generous towards the Islamicity. And let us ask all those people who are present to please ask their friends and their family members in different parts of the country to join us on this platform and not only enjoy what is being done here, the recitation of the Quran, the discussions, and other things, but also participate in raising funds for Islamicity through whatever little we can contribute, because we have to, inshallah, succeed in this manner. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a successful Ramadan for Islamicity and for all of us as well.
Thank you, Dr. Aslam. Yes, and several of you have may already have donated. If you have already donated, then please also consider the monthly donation. And most of all, bring two people, just two people. Ask two of your friends. It takes a little amount of effort. It'll take you maybe 10-15 minutes to identify a couple of people, reach out to them, tell them about the work that we are doing, and ask them to do the same thing. And inshallah, may Allah reward you for this, and make you participants in this Sadaqah Jariyah program, where we are making sure that people have the knowledge of Islam, people are accepting Islam, and at the same time, we are providing educational resources for our future generations by developing apps and so many other programs to help them. So again, thank you so much for listening to that, and inshallah we can conclude. Dr. Aslam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والله سبحانه وتعالى make this blessed month a blessed month for all of us. Protect all of us, protect our families. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this institution a viable and a strong institution to serve your cause and to serve your
Ameen.
deen in the best possible manner. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Aslam. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.